Welcome, everyone, to the fourth episode of the Sid Ammar Show. If you haven't already, make sure you check out the first three episodes available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. My YouTube channel is at Sid Ammar 316. Make sure you subscribe to stay updated with the latest episodes. This is also my handle on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, so make sure you follow me. For those who don't know, I'm also a life coach. I run Taj Life Coaching, and you can contact me on Instagram for life coaching services. Today's guest is Mr. Don Tornwe. And Don, I hope I got your last name correct. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You did, Sid. You pronounced it perfectly.
Perfect. So I invited Don to join us today as he is currently running for the Conservative Party of Canada CPC Edmonton Griesbach nomination. Both Don and myself previously worked on Ali Haimour's UCP campaign provincially earlier this year, and we were in the Griesbach area as well. Don's campaign website is www.dontornwe.com. I have the following from his campaign website. Don Tornwe is a proud resident of Edmonton, having received his education in Edmonton's public schools and graduating from Emmy Lazert School. Don, I went to Emmy as well. What year did you graduate?
2003.
Oh, awesome. I graduated in 2000, so we're probably like just 3 years apart.
Yeah, I must have been just coming into grade 10 when you were leaving.
Wow.
Yeah.
You went all 3 years?
I did all 3 years. I came from London there and just walked across the field to
Oh,
Emmy
wow.
Lazert.
Yeah, they're close to each other. Yeah, I actually loved the Emmy Lazert School. I really enjoyed it. I don't know what it's like nowadays, but it was a wonderful school.
It was, and I think it still is. When you look at Emmy Lazert, it's very community-centered type of high school. You have people from all sort of backgrounds concentrated into one single school. So you have a significant amount of diversity, and within such a short demographic location. So yeah, it's a lovely school. I had wonderful experience there, and I got to meet some wonderful friends. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to have attended there.
Excellent. I'm going to continue here. Don holds a master's degree in commerce and marketing management. From a young age, he imbibed the values of community involvement, the significance of education, and financial responsibility. His career has revolved around working with public safety and emergency services, and he has also been a promising union leader. These experiences have greatly contributed to his development as a leader in public safety. During his master's degree program, Don had the opportunity to travel abroad, broadening his perspective on a global scale and engaging with people from diverse backgrounds. This experience was particularly instrumental in enhancing his critical thinking and problem-solving skills. With over a decade of active civic engagement and social activism, Don stands as the ideal candidate to lead the Edmonton Griesbach riding into a promising future for generations to come. So without further ado, Don, I'd like you to share a little bit more, if you like, about your background, such as where you were born and raised, and what is it that motivates you in life? Why did you choose to get into politics? So please go ahead and say hello, Don.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Sid, for having me or giving me the opportunity to appear on your show, on your podcast. Well, a little bit about me is I was born in Nigeria, but I left Nigeria at a very young age. I believe it was about 7 years old when I left Nigeria. My parents, my whole entire immediate family were relocated here to Canada, directly into Edmonton. And
Was it for economic reasons, I assume? Economic reasons?
No, it was more for political reasons. My dad was exiled, so we end up going through the refugee camps and all of that. So we end up Canada was one of the places that we decided to settle. When we went through the UN refugee program, and Canada picked us out, and that's how we got here.
Wow.
Yeah. So, other than that, like you already pointed out in my bio, in the brief introduction, started elementary school in John Burnett, went from John Burnett to Londonderry, from Londonderry to Emily Lizard. And then from there, I pursued my first diploma I went to Grammar McEwen, left from Grammar McEwen, went to NAIT, got a business administrations. And then after that, pursued an associate degree in management. And from there, I went into, wanted to challenge myself a little bit. So I decided to do my master. Um, but other than that, I'm married. I have a lovely daughter. She's 7 years old. Now she reminds me I can't call her baby anymore because she's 7. She's a grown woman now.
Wow.
She's a grown woman. So yeah, and I decided. So like you mentioned, during these provincial elections, we had the chance to, worked with Ali Haymore. I was his CFO, and I also wear the hat of assistant, almost like a campaign manager. So I wear both hats. So we worked hard, and I was very proud of what he's achieved. I think for the first time, he was able to unite, specifically the ethnic community. We saw that most of the votes that he got came from the ethnic community, and that's something that we have not seen in a long time within Northwest, where he was able to do that. And he's the first one to actually do that. I was very proud of him. I was proud of the campaign that he ran. He ran a very successful campaign. Obviously, we didn't win. But at the end of the day, we looked at the work that we did. It was a positive campaign, and it was a campaign that everybody believed in. And for that, I am extremely proud of him, and I'm proud for the principle in which he ran on. And yeah, so that's a little bit about me in a nutshell.
Yeah, and fully agreed with you on Ali's campaign. I was proud to be part of that campaign as well. Don, you're running for the nomination. Explain to everyone how it works. Not everyone may know how the political system works. So you're running for the nomination to become the CPC candidate. So you're going to be running against, or you are running against other candidates. What day is the final, I guess, the vote for who is going to be the actual candidate?
Well, the party hasn't opened up the nomination yet.
Oh, okay.
What we're officially doing right now is which is where majority of the work starts. It's to sell membership. And the more membership you're able to sell, the more likely you are to be nominated, because you have to get people to come out. And the people that come out are the only people who have purchased the membership. They're the people that can vote for you. So that's the stage in which we're at right now. We have reached out to most of the ethnic communities, and I'm very grateful for most of them opening their doors, and they've been very receptive to it. And we're looking forward to ensuring that this is a community-driven initiative that is not just a Dawn wanting to do something or wanting to run for office. And which is why I always point out to people that when you have an individual that is running for an office, the community should be able to hold that individual accountable. Because without the community, that individual would not be able to hold the position in which they hold. So I want it to be a community-driven initiative instead of a Dawn initiative.
Excellent. And how is how is the candidate selected in the end? Like, is there going to be, like, will there be a vote, or is it based purely on whoever sells the most memberships? How exactly does that take place at the end?
There will be a vote
Okay.
whereby, but the only people who can vote are people who has membership within the party.
Memberships.
Yeah, so if you
Okay.
don't have a membership within the party, as much as you want to support me,
Yeah.
unfortunately, you will not be able to vote for me unless you have a membership within the party.
And which day has the day been set for?
No, it has not. No.
Okay. Okay. And there's others. How many other people are running for the nomination? Is it just you and Carrie Diot, or is there anyone else?
I think right now there's two of us who has publicly come out and
Okay.
declared our intentions to seek the nominations. But there are other people, and I will wait for them to declare first before I go ahead and mention anyone's name.
Okay. And then why should the voters eventually select you as the nominee? What is it that would differentiate you to get people behind you?
Well, what motivates me to want to run? It's my commitment towards community involvement, and I believed in fostering educations and a financial responsibility. Having been deeply involved in public safety and emergency service, I've gained the understanding of critical needs for robust leadership within these areas. My experience and interaction across diverse backgrounds, both local and international, have significantly influenced my motivations. This has shaped my aspiration towards enhancing community welfare and ensuring equal opportunities for all. But I seek these nominations because I'm driven by the convictions to lead Edmonton Griesbach into a future that I know it's promising and sustainable for generations to come. My strong educational background and decades of civil engagement, um, I believe I can effectively address issues such as education, healthcare, affordabilities, and to some extent, equalization payment. My commitment, as I've said before, is to represent the community and address those pressing concerns while upholding the value of inclusivity and progress. So it's it is those things, it is those ideas that drive me. And that's why I think I'm better suited than most other candidates that can seek the nominations. Um, the person that I'm running against was there before, and you know, he doesn't live in the area. He doesn't live in the north side. He lives over in the south side. So sometimes I believe it's difficult, and it's for people to have an appreciation for the issues that we have, unless you're within that area. When you live within the area, you get to see what those issues are, right? And you get to experience it firsthand. And I think that's something that I bring to the table, that experience, right? That appreciation for the experience of what other people within Greaseball lives goes through.
And the Edmonton Griesbach riding, what are the boundaries?
So the Greaseball riding, it's encompass about 40 communities, all the way from Abbotsfield, um, Delton, Delwood, Greaseball, Glenora, Everdale, um, Ellenswood, um, Parklands, sorry, not Parklands, Yellowhead Corridor, Edmonton Northlands, Eastwood, all the way to the river valley towards Randall, Roslyn. So it encompasses Wellington, Virginia Parks. It encompasses a huge community, total about 40 communities within Greaseball.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look up here at Wikipedia to see if there's any boundaries by address,
There
so we
are
can let
boundaries.
everyone know.
Yeah, there are boundaries by address.
Yeah, I just can't seem to find it right now. But the district was created. Edmonton Griesbach was created by the 2012 Federal Electoral Boundaries Redistribution and was legally defined in the 2013 Representation Order. It came into effect scheduled for October 19, 2015. It was created out of parts of the electoral districts of Edmonton East and Edmonton St. Albert. Okay. So
Yeah,
I want to go ahead.
and I know there's some federal with the new boundary suggestions, the reallocations or redistributions of the
Yeah.
boundary. There might be some slight change within Greaseball, and I think the only noticeable one was going to be Beaumaris, whereby we're going to lose a little bit of Beaumaris. So even people in Beaumaris, some of them might go to the other riding.
Okay. And the current member of parliament in the seat right now it looks like it's Blake Desjardins of the NDP party.
That's
Yeah. If you were to win the nomination, can you defeat Blake Desjardins?
absolutely 100%. I mean, he's a young man, and when you compare my experience to his, I believe I understand the issues a lot better than he does, and I know 100% that we can beat him. This is a winnable write-in. This is a conservative write-in, and we'd like to see a return back. We'd like to bring it back home, and I believed I'm the right person to do that.
This is one thing that's always like kind of baffled my mind, because that area and the entire north side, like I grew up in the north side, the entire north side, I've only ever seen it as conservative people, conservative voters, the entire north, like the mindset is conservative mindset. So it's kind of surprising that in NDP, someone representing the NDP was voted in as a member of parliament. To me, that's surprising. This is a conservative area, and it should go to the conservatives.
Yes, and to most of us, to me personally, I wasn't surprised that it went to the NDP when it did. I think the former incumbent had some work to do as conservative. He didn't. I don't think that we fully pulled off that, and as a result, it ended up going to the NDP. Oh, sorry, that's my daughter.
Go ahead, introduce her.
This is Idara. Idara, you want to say hi?
Hi.
Hello. Hi. How are you?
Good.
Are you looking forward to your dad becoming elected member of parliament?
No.
What?
Why not?
Because I want you to stay home.
She wants me to stay home.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
But we have more work to do, right? We have lots of work to do to ensure that your future is bright, like your future is secure.
Make water.
Make water?
Yeah.
Okay, I will. Okay, thank you. You want to say bye?
Okay, see you. Okay, excellent, Don. So I'm just going to go to your website. You have 6 sections right here. You have education, affordability, equalization payments, universal health care, inflation control, and carbon tax, and net zero. And God knows we want to get rid of that carbon tax. But I want to start off with education. I'm just going to read, a little bit of what you have on here and then have you elaborate further on that. So Don Tornwe believes that education is the key to unlocking opportunities and creating a better future. We are committed to providing access to quality education for all Edmontonians, regardless of their socioeconomic background. What exactly do you want to do for education across the country?
Well, coming from a Nigerian background, we are strong believers in education. And the reason is that we've always believed that education is what raised people out of poverty. And with good educations, you'll be amazed of what you can do with it and what you can achieve. For me, when I'm talking about affordability in terms of education-wise, is to ensure that quality educations, it's available to everyone regardless of economic or social background. And that's something that I think that the conservative government has always done. We prioritize educations, quality educations, educations that I for example, I have a master's degree, and as you well know, it's not cheap. You can go from anywhere. A master program can go from $10,000 to about $30,000 for you to pay for it. And I want to be able to make sure to say, you know what, if somebody wants to pursue that avenue, that there are programs, there are fundings available for them to continue to pursue that. And that's what I meant in terms of that.
One thing that concerns me about education is, well, definitely like what you're mentioning, the rising costs of education. I mean, I'm seeing like lots of money being spent on infrastructure when it comes to education. Everything is getting more expensive. The price of textbooks are in the hundreds of dollars. I think a lot can be done, especially with the development of newer and newer technologies. If anything, like things are becoming more online, the internet should be used to drive down costs. What do you think about that?
And you're right. When I did my master program, there's even some of the courses that I had to take online. Right. It's not all my courses that were in class. And what that helped did was that it helped reduce my cost. Right. I did some of those courses. I think I did about um, 6 of the courses were online that I had to do online, and that helped me also help pace myself. So you're absolutely correct that we should take advantage of these systems, of the technologies that are not available. These are structured that you know when my parents went to schools was not available to them, right? And these are things that can help reduce cost and make it more cost efficient. So it's to make it available. But again, in some rural areas, right, they don't have those. Like there's some areas where you don't have internet. We're talking still in Alberta. There's areas that still internet. It's not available. So we have to make sure that we also have the infrastructure that's going to support online educations.
Excellent. Here on affordability, it says that you aim to address the issue of affordability in various aspects of life, such as housing. We all know housing costs are going through the roof. I mean, it's a lot more expensive when you go to Vancouver and Toronto. One thing that is concerned me is that, first, Alberta is a very successful province, and the cost of housing is so expensive in some other areas. People are migrating to Alberta. Now, it's a good thing people are migrating to Alberta. We want to grow our province. We want to grow our economy. But when you have more and more people migrating to Alberta, you're going to have an increase in demand for housing. Then eventually, somewhere down the line, it's gonna cause our housing to increase unless we continue to build housing, and even maybe at a faster rate. What do you think about that? The long-term aspects of housing costs in Alberta. Can we keep up?
I don't think we can. I think if we keep this government, if the Liberal government continues to stay in power, I think the cost of housing will continue to skyrocket. And if you see the plan that the CPC has proposed, it's to alleviate some of that. We need to be able to give credit. We need to have a constructions company back building more houses. And we need to be able to give credits not just to the developers, but also to individuals who wants to be able to purchase new homes. We need to make sure that these programs are available to them to help bring down the cost. Because the truth is, the more houses you have on the market, the less likely, you're going to have high cost of houses goes up, right? The more houses you have on the market, the less houses and the prices are going to drop. So we need to be able to tap into those type of programs, but you need a government that is willing to incentivize those programs, right? And I think the CPC has that. And, back then, a couple of years ago, people used to be able to, an average house was about, $1,300 for a 3-bedroom house, for you to rent. Now we're looking at about anywhere between $1,900, if you're lucky to even find one that's available, right? So
yeah, it's crazy.
We are encouraging. We want people to move to this province, but we have to address the housing concern. We have to address it. There simply isn't enough currently housing available in the market for people to even rent from. And that's causing the prices to go up.
Yeah. And so we do want more people to come to this province, but we also want, our everything here to be sustainable. If more people are going to enter the province, we need to be building more houses. One thing
we do, and that's why I was so disappointed with the federal government. They have a housing program or affordability program that it did, and I think they only give Alberta, I think it's $3 billion that's available. And I think Alberta only got, Edmonton and Calgary only got, I think it was like a fraction, not even anything of of substance that they can't do anything with it. They can't build affordable housing with it. And yet they're talking about, the needs to be able to build more houses, but these funds are not being released to Alberta.
How come?
Well,
Could it be because of the other stuff going on? The other back and forth between Alberta and Ottawa?
I think it could very well be that. I think they're using it to punish Alberta, just like how we saw the carbon tax, right? We saw that now they're going to release. They're no longer going to charge carbon tax or put a pause on it for homes that are using oil.
Yeah, in eastern, all the way in the eastern provinces, right?
Correct. But here in the prairies and in the western part of provinces, we use natural gas. And yet we have been forced to pay carbon tax. All this long, we were all sold on the idea that it was because we want to reduce emission.
Yeah.
And we clearly know it has nothing to do with that anymore.
And natural gas is cleaner.
That's right.
So, take a look at that one.
Right.
So both, this is actually an interesting situation because both the UCP and the NDP have pushed back on this, I believe. Like they both pushed back, like what's going on here? I mean, I think the hypocrisy is evident from the federal government if you look at it objectively. Why do you end the tax on oil in the East and why not here, right? Speaking of affordability for housing, one thing connected to housing is utilities and the cost of utilities. A few years ago, when Andrew Scheer was running to be when he was running in the election, one of the campaign promises, I believe, if I remember correctly, he made was he would end GST on utilities. So heat and power and all that. Has the CPC, are you aware, has the CPC like taken that up again? Because I think that would be wonderful, to throw into the package.
Well, what the CPC is suggesting is that carbon tax, if we're elected, it will be axed. It will be gone. It will be thin of the pass, right? Because we know, right, that this is just a gimmick. We know that it's not intended, right, for the purpose in which they have said it was going to be used for.
Yeah.
So the party has made it very clear that if they're elected, carbon tax will be thin of the pass.
Yeah, and I'm fully with you on that. But specifically, like, what about the GST on heating?
Well,
do you think they would take that up again?
I don't know. So I can't speak to that. But I think considering what they're willing to do for carbon tax currently, right? I think that itself would essentially solve majority of our problem in terms of putting more money into our pockets.
Agreed. So, equalization payment you have here on the website, it says supports the fair distribution of financial resources between regions to reduce economic disparities and promote balanced development. However, you believe that the current formula is unjust to Albertans. In 2021, 62% of Albertans voted to delete the principle of equalization from Canada's constitution. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, the current formula, right, doesn't adequately account, right, for the economical challenges faced by Albertans. This province contributes significantly to the national economy, primarily due to our energy sector, right, notably our oil and gas. However, during the period of economical downtime in this sector, such as decline in oil price, Alberta economy situations can suffer. And yet the equalization payment doesn't always reflect these challenges appropriately. For me, I see that this results in a sense of inequality, right? Where Albertans contribute more than we receive in return. So my concern with the formula is it's how the formulas use a relative income measure, right? Alberta has a high income level, right? Which can sometimes inaccurately portray the province as wealthy, even if the citizens still face challenges due to cost of living, with high wages, high expenses in the region. So the formula doesn't take any of that into considerations. Right? So that's why I have an issue with it. And I think that we need to go back to the table and say, okay, is there a way that we can readdress this issue in 2024, right? And I think one of the CPC will be willing to at least have that conversation, I think. And if they're not willing to, I think that's something that I'm able to say, this is what's important to my writing, right? And we want to have this thing addressed.
And, to add on to that, like, even if we are more successful and more wealthy and we have higher incomes than other provinces, it's not something that should be used against us. I mean, the mentality should not be, well, Alberta, generates a lot more. Let's just take more from them and equalize all across the nation. That's not how it should work. What should be happening is, hey, Alberta seems to be doing well. What can we do to emulate their policies? What can we change in our province to become successful like how Albertans are, rather than, taking more and more of our wealth away and redistributing it unequally throughout the nation? The mentality in all the other provinces has even at the federal level has got to be, what can we do elsewhere to give people, the same bargaining power that they have in Alberta? You know what I mean? Let's teach the rest of the country. If we are more successful, let's teach the rest of the country, what they can do to move themselves up.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you, and this is why 62% of Albertans voted, right, to have that looked at, right, to remove the principle of equalization from the Canadian Constitution, and it's not an issue. It's an issue that I think this government doesn't even want to address, but it's a serious issue to Albertans. We're saying, you know what, we are unjustly, right? It's unjust. This principle, it's unjust to us. We're not saying that we don't want to help out the rest of the provinces. We have a responsibility to look after our brothers and sisters. That is there, but we should do it within a responsible manner that also take into account our needs first.
Yeah, fully agreed. It's not that we don't want to help out. We do want to help out where it's needed, but we also want to be treated fairly and equally.
Absolutely. And I think we've been doing that for a long time. And I think, this government's taking us for granted, taking this province for granted, I like to say, and, we contribute more than our fair share to the national economy. So
the next point on here is on universal health care. So it says that Don recognizes the importance of access to quality health care and is committed to working towards a healthcare system that is accessible, affordable, and equitable for all Canadians. And you firmly support the principle of universal healthcare. And I assume by universal healthcare, you're referring to, the public health system in Alberta, the public health system.
Correct. But also there's a healthcare act in Alberta where it says nobody in this country should pay out of pocket for the services in which they need. You should not, if you need surgery today, you should not have to pay any money out of your pocket before you get that service. My parents are aged, right? And I have a young family. And healthcare, it's important. It's important to know that when the time comes, should you need it, it's there for you. And you should not have to, be denied healthcare or care simply because you don't have the same level of resources that other people have. I think so. For me, this is something that's important to me, and I believe in that principle. And again, like I said, it's the principle of we look after our brothers. We are our brothers and sisters keepers, and especially the elders among us. We have to ensure that their health, right, it's looked after, it's taken care of. And the best way for us to do that is to continue down that line of the principle of universal healthcare.
Yeah. In that statement that you're talking about in the Alberta, what are you saying, the Public Healthcare Act?
Yes.
It does not exclude the possibility of private forms of healthcare, because this does exist today. I mean, if people if you want to wait for a CT scan, right? You have access to it, but through the public system, there's a long delay, right? By a month sometimes. I remember a case, the delay was at least a month, and we had to go get a CT scan done. We had to pay for it, and then we got it done within about 2 days. So, there are cases in which you have to pay private. I would like to see, both options available. That's just, my belief. Give everyone the public option, let it be available to them. But then if the system is overloaded, if we don't have enough doctors, if we don't have enough resources, I've heard of people going to the United States for surgeries that cost much less than they cost here in Alberta. Plus, it's much quicker lead time. Are you supportive of having both options, the public and the private option, for anyone who can afford it? Because the idea is, if you have the private option, at least it'll alleviate pressure off the public system. Can these two systems, in your opinion, work side by side? Can they help each other? Can they address the weaknesses of each other's system? What do you think?
Well, what I don't want to see, it's what we saw a couple of months ago, whereby we were seeing Medic Center trying to charge people, right, in order for them to have sort of a membership.
Where is this? Tell me more.
Here in Alberta, we saw where there's some Medic Center or some physicians, right, that they were getting paid, I think it was $2,000 or something like that, or up to that, for you to be registered within to be able to be seen by the doctor.
But these physicians are already being paid, right? Because they're already paid by the Alberta government.
Correct. And that's why I was proud of the premier for stepping up.
I did not know that. Wow.
And she put a stop to that. And she says, in this province, it would not happen.
Yeah.
She promised and she guaranteed healthcare guarantee in this province. Right. So to see, I don't want to see that system whereby, people are having to pay first up front before you can see a doctor. Right. That's something I will advocate against. I don't want to see it. So
what can we do to drop the costs of healthcare generally? Because I know it's a provincial jurisdiction and I know you're running federally, but of course, I mean, the two systems are interrelated and connected, because we pay taxes and then the government is going to redistribute that amount. And sometimes they're even going to look after programs like the federal government right now. They brought out the Canada dental benefit, right? I mean, it's neat to have a dental benefit, but I'd rather have it not be done by the federal government. I prefer it to be done provincially, because when you manage it locally, your costs are less, the bureaucracy is smaller. It'll be more efficient. You know what I mean? What about something like that? The Canada dental benefit, wouldn't it be better if it was the Alberta dental benefit and run provincially?
Well, I mean, that's something that Albertans will have to decide. I think in lieu of that, I think the federal government, right, have decided to put in some sort of a program. I'm not completely against it. I can't tell you that I'm completely against it. I haven't looked at the cost analysis in regards to it, but whatever form of healthcare is available, that it's affordable, that it's accessible, I advocate for that, right? I'd rather have it than not have it anything at all.
Yeah, keyword affordable and accessible. Are we going to be able? Because I am reading that we are trying to increase the number of nurses we have, the number of doctors that we have in the province. What would you do? I know you're running federally, but what are your thoughts on this provincially? How can we drop the costs of healthcare in the province?
I think you got to look at take a look at current within this province. You see a lot of heavy top managers.
True.
And we need to reduce that.
I'm with that. Yeah, I see that.
So we can take some of their salary and hire 2 to 3 more nurses.
Frontline people. Yeah.
Right. So those are some things that we can do.
Yeah.
Right. Again, I've had people advocate for we need more hospitals and all that, but we have lots of other infrastructure that surround the inner city that are not being utilized to its full capacity. I think what we need to start doing is start looking at how we can, provide the necessary resources to those. Take, for example, we have within Edmonton, surrounding Edmonton, we have Mournville, we have Westlock, we have Barheads, all these other places. They have medical facilities, right? And we could find ways to equip them to make sure that will help take some of the load off of Misericordia, off of Greynon, off of Royal Alex, if we're using them and dispatching them properly, right? So those are some of the things that we can look at doing. It's not necessarily always building a new hospital. We already have some of those infrastructures that is available.
Yeah, and I assume these surrounding towns would have the capacity to take on additional patients.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Right.
and then another thing, just one more thing on this topic, is that there are a lot of foreign trained doctors and nurses that are absolutely wonderful. If the federal government can in any way, work on expediting that, having, doing whatever they can at the federal level to get their credentials recognized, that would also be a boost.
Yes, it would be in terms of bridging that gap, right, that we currently have. We know that provincially, this provincial government has done a great job in that, right, and ensured that nurses, doctors, can be somehow fast track, right? So you need the federal government to also do their own part, right? And it. So, yes.
Your next point here is on inflation control. You will prioritize controlling inflation to maintain stable prices and economic growth, which contributes to a more secure and prosperous society. I fully agree with you. We need to get inflation under control. Inflation, to me, is a disease. What do you have any thoughts or ideas of how you would address inflation?
We need to stop borrowing. Right, we need to stop printing more money. That's essentially it. The governor of the central bank, right, came out with his report, and he said it. This government needs to control its borrowing and spending.
Yeah,
that's how you control inflation. That is a key factor in inflation.
Yeah,
right?
especially with that spending, spend more wisely.
Yes.
And more efficiently as well.
Right. So that's it. That's where we start from.
What about one thing I'm gonna propose is, we have interest. Interest is part of society. We pay interest. Interest rates are going up. Mortgages are really expensive. And if you look at it, the way I've always analyzed it is you look at a house, you take out a mortgage, let's say, and I don't know, $500,000 mortgage, you pay for a house. When you're done paying for it, at the very end, the house may have cost you at least $1 million. So you're almost paying like double what the value of the house is. Whoever the money is going to, the banks, I mean, they're getting filthy rich off of all these interest and interest payments. I would like the federal government to look into a prohibition on compound interest. Maybe you cannot fully prohibit interest, but at least on compound interest. All the banks, I believe, work in compound interest, but it was TD only recently. I believe only recently they started applying compound interest in something. I don't remember the exact details. Is something like that possible? Just a way for us to control these interest rates. And I know there's a market element to it, right? Like there's more money printing, and then affects this and affects that. But what can we do to control this excessive interest, because people are just paying into interest. People are stuck in credit card debt. There's people that just live off the credit cards. They're not owning anything. They're making the minimum payments. It's absolutely mind-boggling. I mean, what's going to happen? What do you think?
Well, the Bank of Canada essentially controls the interest rate in this country. And yes, there is a market component to it. So I believe in a fair market. I do. And I don't want the government intruding too much where they shouldn't be. So a prohibition on interest rate, I think that could have a serious effect, a negative effect on the economy. You have to allow some portion of the economy to the market to sort of regulate itself. But you're right that if we are to control our spending and our borrowing, we could essentially we can see essentially a decrease in interest rate, right? That is charged. But until we can do that, it's not going to make a big difference. You're still going to see the high interest rate that has been released by the Bank of Canada. And that's why they're advising this Liberal government to slow down on their borrowing and their spending.
If I'm remembering correctly, was it Pierre Trudeau that? See, I believe back in the past, the government used to borrow from the Bank of Canada for public works and infrastructure projects, and they would pay it back without paying interest on that. I don't know if you've ever heard into that or read on that, and I believe it may have been Pierre Trudeau. I may be mistaken, but it may have been Trudeau that changed it all around. So now we start paying interest for public works projects and infrastructure projects. Are you aware of anything?
I am not.
Okay.
I am not.
Just something interesting. I do believe something, can be done, at least with compound interest rates. Maybe not interest in general, but at least with the compound interest rates.
I think that when you look at Bank of Canada, they're supposed to be an arm's length. They're not supposed
relationship
to
with the federal government.
Yeah. They're not supposed to. The federal government should not have any influence over the decisions that they make.
Yeah.
But for me, again, that raises a bit of a concern sometimes because you have for example, you elect a government, right? And that government does not have any saying in how the Bank of Canada operates.
Yeah. You would think that the government would be in charge of the money supply in the country, but you know what I mean? Like the way things have become in this modern age, it's like it's all over the place.
It is, and I think that's a conversation for Canadians to also have at some point, right? Say, look, here you have this individual that make all the decisions. This individual is not elected by you.
Yeah.
And yet he's making other decisions.
Yeah.
So
that affect the well-being of the nation, the economic well-being of the nation. Like it's not elected, right?
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So and you have a section here on carbon tax and net zero, and you did make it clear that, of course, your position is to completely end the carbon tax. What people may not realize is that the carbon tax itself, it's not just a tax you pay on heating bills. I mean, you pay this carbon tax everywhere. Your cost of food is going to go up. Your cost of transportation is going to go up. Everything's going to go up. It's going to affect you much more deeply than you think. And before, the Liberal government used to say that when people get their climate action incentive payment, they're getting back, what they put in, or a little bit more than what they put in. And I think it was only a few months ago where one of the ministers said, well, you may not be getting as much back as what you're paying with the increase in the carbon tax rate. Isn't that right?
Well, they should have essentially just called it a tax on breathing and living.
Yeah.
Right. That would have been the right terminology they should have used, right? Because essentially that's what they're doing to you. They're taxing you to live. They're
Yeah.
taxing you to heat your homes.
Yeah. And people need to think about that carefully, man. Like they're like what you said is perfect. They're taxing you to live. I mean,
Yes.
think about that.
You
That's
know,
crazy.
and I am a firm believer that if today we are elected, I would advocate for it. And this party has agreed that it needs to go. That's just not. It's an on-Canadian thing. We don't do that. We don't tax people for breathing. We don't tax people for living. We don't tax people for heating their homes.
Yeah.
Right? Winter's around the corner, and we have seen the price of heating our homes.
And thankfully, thankfully, the provincial government is trying their best to do something about it. I mean, Danielle Smith recently said that the federal government needs to step up and cancel the carbon tax or make this exception for every province and every fuel type, end quote. That's what we were talking about earlier. The the ending the tax on oil in the East. Finance Minister Nate Horner said he was, quote, extremely disappointed that Canadians in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and other provinces who heat their homes with natural gas have been neglected, end quote. So yeah, hopefully we can get the Conservatives back in the federal government and we can end that.
Absolutely. And we know Saskatchewan has even gone as far as Saskatchewan is saying that they will stop collecting the carbon tax.
Wow. I wonder, can they do that?
They can. They can. Right? This province, Albertans, the UCP government are saying, you know what? We have legislations that if they're not willing to do the right thing, we will use that legislations to enforce that, to make sure that they, because it's unjust. It's absolutely unjust.
Fully
Are
agreed.
we not part of Canada anymore?
Mm-hmm.
We now have a two-tier system in this country where one regions get something completely different while we punish the other region for simply what? Heating their homes and staying warm.
And the federal government should not be able to because the way it works is that provincial governments, they have legislatures, and you have the parliament in Ottawa. Ottawa is responsible for the defense of the nation, but the idea is that they're all at the same level, but the provincial government governs that specific territory, and they have different rights and responsibilities in relation to the federal government. And the federal government should not be able to supersede, our ability to govern according to the Constitution.
Right. And, it's, within a true federations,
Yeah.
you consider the interest of even the minorities.
Well said.
Currently, our interest, it's not been considered. If you can put a pause on another region paying the same tax, but then you're forcing other region to pay the same tax. That is unjust. That is un-Canadian. It is unconstitutional to do that.
I'm with you. Fully agreed on that. The last political related item I have here is, there's a lot of noise being made right now about the Canada Pension Plan versus the Alberta Pension Plan. I've gone through the website provincially that the Alberta government released, and, I'm starting to see this idea of an Alberta pension plan much more favorable, if indeed the numbers are accurate and correct. What is your position? Do you support us getting into our own Alberta pension plan, transferring whatever, belongs to Albertans and managing it, in Alberta? Or do you prefer to stick with the Canada pension plan that we have?
Well, what I know is this. I know that Albertans pays 4 times more into the pension plan than any other
That's
province.
mind-boggling. Wow.
And we take out less. We have the youngest populations in this country. Now, it should be left up to Albertans to make the decisions. but they should make the decisions fully informed. And I think that's what this government is doing, the UCP government, this current government. They have collected the informations and they're leaving it up to Albertans to look at the data, look at the report, make the decisions for yourself. Now, again, there's a lot of things that I think that it should be left up to each region to decide what's best for them. And perhaps this is one of them, whereby Albertans should decide. It shouldn't be any other provinces that should decide. We know that Quebec doesn't, it's not a part of the Canada Pension Plan, but it was okay for them to do it. Right? So, but at the end of the day, it should be you and I that should vote on it. And I think this is a good referendum questions. And I hope that this government puts it as a referendum questions for Albertans to decide on the issue.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, we live in a democracy. If the vast majority of Alberta wants to switch to a more locally managed pension plan, we can keep more money in our pockets. Why not? That's our right. It's a democracy. If we vote for it, it should be respected, right?
Absolutely. And based on the numbers, you would keep more money into your pocket. An average person is keeping almost over $1,200 in their pockets. Right. So why shouldn't we?
Yeah.
But we have to make the decisions looking at all the facts, the numbers. At the same time, we also have to listen to the opposition voice, and look at everything at the end of the day, come to an informed decisions.
Yeah, to me, and of course, like, what you say is important. We should look at what the opposition is saying, because you never know. Like, we may not have every fact on our side. You know, like, a human being has to be able to look at the other side and objectively analyze it and be like, hey, you know what? What you're saying here, even though let's say we're in two different political parties, what you're saying here is correct. Let's find out where we can work together, where we can make a compromise that benefits the province, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's what this premier has done, right? She has gathered the information and she's presented it for Albertans to look at the report.
Yeah.
Right. And she's been I've never seen a
They've done a wonderful job. They've done a great job on this website.
They have. And it's left up to you and I to look at the information and decide.
Yeah. Excellent. Don, I just wanted to ask, like, we're on the north side, and there's a lot of religious communities on the north side, and where you're running Edmonton, Griesbach, there's a lot of different various ethnic communities, religious communities. Your outlook on life when it comes to faith, what role does faith play for you?
Well, I've always said that freedom of speech, freedom of conscience, and freedom of religion are the bedrock, are the foundation of any democracy. It's what this country is built on. And what I've been seeing lately is that we're not electing people who will defend these principles. I grew up in a Christian zone. The values, my Christian upbringing, it grounds me, and it's important to me, right? So I think as people of faith, we need to start looking closely to people who governs us, and we need to ask them the questions, right? Do they exhibit those principles that we want? It is not when we elect them into office, right, and they go contrary to what we expected of them. And so it's important to me. My faith is important to me.
Wonderful. And honestly, like, if that's a closing statement, that's a beautiful closing statement. Don, thank you very much for, for joining me today. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
Well, first of all, I say thank you. Honestly, thank you for having me on your show. I growing up on the north side, most of my friends were Lebanese. You know, I've always considered the Lebanese
Just like this
community,
guy.
just like you, exactly. I've always considered the Lebanese community as my adopted community. And right now, I understand some of the issues. I understand some of the challenges that the community is going through. And what I can say is this: keep the faith, hold on, right? But at the same time, I will love you guys' support. I cannot do it without you guys. And every single inch of support that you guys give me, I would appreciate it. And I will cherish it. And I will make sure that I live up to the expectations that you guys have for me.
And I'll tell you that the feeling is mutual. I do want to see you succeed, and I'm sure a lot of Lebanese people are going to turn out for you, man.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Don. It was a pleasure to have you join us.
Absolutely, my friend. Thank you, Sid.
Okay, take care, man.
Okay.
Bye bye.